Welcome to One on One with Mitch Lafon. Joining me on this episode, it is singer Dee Snider of Twisted Sister, or should I say, formerly of Twisted Sister. We talk about his new solo album, We Are the Ones, the Fair Play, Fair Pay Act, and a whole lot more. Before checking that out, please check me out on Twitter at Mitch Lafon, MITCHLAFON. One-on-one Mitch Lafon on Facebook and paypal.me/Mitch Lafon should you care to support the podcast. Also head over to talkingmetal.com. That is where this podcast resides and many others. So please don't forget to check that out, talkingmetal.com. And now, without further ado, here is the one, the only, Dee Snider. We are speaking with Dee Snider. The new album is We Are the Ones. Always a pleasure, Dee. Just always great. It's just always fun to talk to you.
Good to talk to you too, Mitch.
And there's a lot of good stuff going on. So first and foremost, let's talk about the album, and then we can get into all the other stuff, including Twisted Sister's last show that is coming up, I guess, on Saturday, right?
This Saturday, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll get to that after, but... The album, We Are the Ones, definitely a departure from some of the stuff you've done before. Some fans are going to love it, some fans are going to hate it, some might just simply be confused. Talk to me a little bit about putting this album together and what you were trying to say, because, you know, when you listen to a song like Rule the World or Head Like a Hole, that's not exactly I Wanna Rock, so what was the statement?
I wasn't trying to make I Want to Rock. I was trying to not make I Want to Rock. With the end of Twisted Sister, I was really closing the door on the musical, the touring, the recording element of my career. I hadn't done any new music in a very long time. In decades. Yeah, there was, To Hell and Back, which partially led to this record, as a matter of fact, which I'll get to. But for the most part, I had not pursued trying to write new music for Twisted Sister or trying to write music, period. And I was closing the door until I met producer, songwriter Damon Ranger, just a chance meeting on a radio show in Chicago. And on the way out, when we were just saying goodbye to each other, he turned to me and said, with the right music, Dee Snider could have a whole new audience and an appeal and appeal to a new audience and have a place in the contemporary music scene. And I looked at him like he was out of his mind. And I said, really? And he goes, yeah. He goes, you're iconic. You're the voice of rebellion. He says, you're incredibly well known. And he says that for the last 30 years, you've catered to a very small percentage of the music community, hair metal, classic rock metal fans. He goes, and he says, and there's all these people out there who are Dee Snider, aware of Dee Snider, and are fans of Dee Snider for your work on television and radio and movies, and you've done nothing to reach out to them musically. He says, and your message is eternal. The message of rebellion, you are the voice of rebellion. So I said, that's interesting, and I literally walked away. Months later, I decided to try my hand at doing some new music, had written and recorded To Hell and Back. I was playing it for my wife, and Suzette, who's been with me since day one, my biggest fan and my biggest critic. And she was, and I played it, and she had no reaction. I said, "You don't like it?" She goes, "No, it's fine. It's just the same old thing." I said, "Well, I'm the same old person." And she goes, "Well, isn't there somebody who can help you do something new?" And I said, "Well, I met this guy a few months ago who said he wanted to do something." She said, "Well, effing call him." That was her exact words. And I called the DJ, Mancow. He gave me Damon's number. I reached out to Damon, and we moved forward from there.
Right. Now, do you want to talk at all about Mancow and Damon, just in the sense that after all of this happened? No. Okay.
It's. I mean, there's. Mancow and Damon had a thing at the local level. Damon's a producer.
Right.
And the bottom line with producers is they're the men behind the curtains.
Right.
What all I care about. I'm a results-oriented guy, and when I met Damon, whatever credits he had or credentials he brought, that meant nothing to me. It meant the whole thing was execution. What do you got in mind? And he brought me "We Are the Ones," and we recorded that. I said, all right, I get that. We Are the Ones. It's got my message. I've got a punk. There'd be no Twisted Sister without Sex Pistols. I'll tell you that right now. I've got a punk leanings myself, so this is more punk driven. Cool. I like that. What else you got? And then we moved and we recorded the next two songs. And from there we got both the national and international record deal. So, and people believed. So it was piece by piece, step by step, song by song. There was never carte blanche or just like hand the reins over and say, okay, you drive and I'll just sit back here and, do whatever you want. So, to me, it's everything on the record I participated in, mostly on a lyrical level, and I was, involved in the process in a very big way. So that's all that matters to me musically. Now, as far as the music goes, the goal was make a contemporary rock record, something to appeal to a contemporary rock audience. So I knew going in. And I'm a fan of contemporary rock. I'm a fan of the Foo Fighters. I love new music. I knew going in that I was turning my back, so to speak, on my old audience. But I knew that those who were open to a wider range of music would give it a shot and come with me if they liked it. And then I knew and appreciated that there are, diehard fans of old music, and there's nothing to do to change their minds anyway. And I get that. It's the music that defines them, and they're not going to be fans of anything else.
Okay, so talk to me then about building a new audience, because I'm thinking of Canadian bands here like Platinum Blonde and Harem Scarem. They went to radio with new singles, and radio went, and so they changed their name to Rubber, and they changed their name to Number 9, and it was the same band and the same song, and then radio went, okay, we'll take it. Do you think you're going to encounter something like that, where a radio station, whether it's in Chicago or in Wisconsin, will say, yeah, you're not the Foo Fighters, you're not Imagine Dragons, you're Dee Snider, and so are you going to encounter that kind of resistance because you're not doing what's in the past, and how do you sort of overcome that if you are?
I don't.
Okay.
I say, okay, cool, and I go down to my house in the Caribbean and just stay on the beach. I'm giving it my all, but I'm not going to, I'm going to. And this is funny because I told my publicist this is the interviews I didn't want to do. Sorry, Mitch.
My apologies.
This is like the heavy metal interviews. Where you've got to defend yourself and explain yourself and.
Well, okay, then we can move away from that. I've got plenty of stuff on this here.
Yeah, because this is you can play this. I don't want to. I'm not here. I'm not, doing this project to defend what I'm doing, to explain. Other than explain, well, I will explain myself. That look, this is what matters. This is what matters, and I'll explain motivation. The realization that now more than ever, people need the Dee Snider message. The message I've always sang: believe in yourself, fight for what you believe in, stand up for what you believe in, frickin' rebel. The world is a mess. What's going on internationally, politically, and socially, on so many levels, it's a mess. And I believe that's because the true majority out there, which are the people in the middle, have not stood up and made their voices heard. So in the United States, we get an election with a Hillary and a Trump as the choices. The two most disliked people in the history of American politics. Number one and number two, with a bullet. Those are our choices. We've allowed that to happen. And so even though I'm at a place in my life where I'm happy and successful and I've got nothing to prove, if I am a voice for people, if I can inspire people to rise up and fight back and make their voices heard if there's a need for that. And this is how I can achieve it, by playing a more mainstream rock and roll and getting my message out there, then I'm down for that. And when I started this record, that's when the whole election cycle started. This 2-year process, that's when I started working on this music, started working with Damon, and it's been gone hand in hand. We are the ones who've gone hand in hand with what's been going on in the world and what's been going on in American politics.
Yeah, and it's strange also. You look at a band like U2 or an artist like Madonna or Prince, they're allowed, or even David Bowie, they're allowed and expected to reinvent themselves on every album. And yet you look at Kiss, you look at Twisted Sister, and fans go, "Oh, no, 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 don't you dare." And
well, thank you for appreciating that. And, you know, and my only hope for that, and again, but that isn't the reason for leaving Twisted, you know, and you know that. I mean, Twisted, I love the guys, I love the legacy, proud of it. I've just crossed the finish line, man. I've been running a crazy marathon for 40 years, and it's really it ain't easy to keep up the level of performance. And so, if people go, "Are you sad?" I go, you know, yes, but I'm happy because I've been just like I said, I've crossed the finish line. I'm crossing Saturday. We'll cross the finish line, and I've successfully done it in one piece. I've not lowered my standards. I've not disappointed my audience with my performances, and I'm walking off that stage. Well, hopefully, I hope I'm not jinxing myself. I'm not being carried off the stage or limping off the stage. So that was that was purely the end of Twisted Sister. But with Damon's challenge, I knew this wasn't something I could do within Twisted Sister. Some people said, "Well, why don't you do all new music with Twisted Sister?" As you just said, that has no chance of being accepted. So I thought, maybe if there's any chance people will accept new music from Dee Snider that's not Twisted Sister, it'll be as Dee Snider. But there's a fair chance that won't be accepted either, because I certainly, you know, have like sort of defined myself, and I'm the driving force behind Twisted Sister. So many people say, "Well, you are Twisted Sister." So with the makeup, with the costume, with the name or not, you're still Twisted Sister.
Right.
So we'll see.
So you mentioned the word fair. So the Fair Play, Fair Pay Act, and I'm not trying to be a devil's advocate. I'm trying to understand, and maybe you can explain this to me. In the old days, 70s, 80s, and before, AM radio and FM radio played songs from albums and paid artists nothing. A penny, half a penny, two pennies.
No, nothing. Zero.
Right.
Flat zero.
And now we got to the point where we've got YouTube and Spotify, and they go, "Well, they're not paying us." And it's like, well, okay, but how is it different from then? And of course, I'm not saying two wrongs make a right, because they don't. So what exactly are you trying to accomplish with this act, or having, you know, we're not going to take it, sort of be, I don't want to say the voice of it, but associated with it, and sort of take the stupid out of me and explain what's going on here?
Well, you're a little uninformed, which is
on purpose.
That's part. No, that's part of the problem.
Right.
Is a part of the problem is, you know, terrestrial radio. That's AM, FM radio in the United States. I don't know how it applies to Canada, so, and I'm sure it doesn't. You guys have very different rules up there. Has not paid, in the history of terrestrial radio, has never paid the artist even a fraction of a cent. Okay, zero. The rest of the world, Europe, outside the world, radio pays the artists. Okay, Spotify and all these other, and Pandora and all these other outlets, they actually pay a fraction of a cent. It's so minimal. I believe that Psy, that Korean guy with that Gangnam Style, he got paid for 1 billion plays. 1 billion. He got $60,000 for Spotify. So you can only imagine what a band with 1,000 plays is getting. Okay, do the math. So it's not much, but they pay something. Now, so the Grammys have been campaigning for many years now to get terrestrial radio to at least pay something. Because not only would that recognize the value of the artists, what that they're actually, you know, they're giving the content for the radio stations, but there's monies that are being collected, hundreds of millions of dollars that have been collected and are sitting in banks that are owed to American artists for airplay outside the U.S. But the countries outside the U.S. will not release the funds until there's reciprocal agreement with American radio, because their artists aren't being paid. So everybody in the world is paying artists and recognizes it except the United States. And the United States isn't paying anybody. And if the United States radio would acknowledge the artists deserve to get something, the rest of the world will release monies that are sitting there already in banks for American artists, and money will flow both ways. But radio stations have stood by that it is promotion. And they've said it's promotion since day one. And to which I respond, yeah, Led Zeppelin needs promotion. Fleetwood Mac needs your radio promotion. These classic rock stations, their foundation is on multi-platinum records, who don't need any promotion. The fact that their music is well known is why they use the music, is that everybody tunes in to hear songs they know. So anyway, this is the Fair Pay, Fair Play Act, and why it is so important.
But isn't some of the initial problem, though, with recording contracts where a young band sort of does a work for hire and a record company says, we'll give you $10,000, and the band goes, yeah, sure. And then, 30 years later, they go, oh, man, we didn't see that was going to have value. Is there some artist responsibility?
No, there's none. Radio is completely independent, and the artist has been at the mercy of terrestrial radio station. Satellite radio pays something. So every other outlet, no matter how small the amount is, and it is infinitesimal, and it's a joke in and of itself how much little they pay. But they've all acknowledged that the artist deserves something for their product, except for terrestrial radio, which is held fast since Marconi, well, it's arguable that Tesla actually invented radio, and that's another discussion. But since the radio was invented, that day, in the United States only, they've said, no, we're not paying the artist for the product. We're doing them a favor.
And it's strange because I do know in Canada it's a lot different. The CMMRA, the camera, Canadian Music, whatever rights, they really keep a good eye on that, and you have to fill in all kinds of forms. And it's unfortunate that the States does that to their artists. And
Canada is incredible with its supports of the arts and the artists and Canadian artists. I have nothing but the highest regard and respect for how the Canadian government and people have supported and just encouraged and protected their people, their artists, and with restrictions on what can be played and can't be played. But it's all been with the interest of protecting your Canadian artists and musicians, and that's just incredible. Bravo.
Yeah. So let me ask. I was going to ask you a twisted sister question, but let me skip that for now. Do the states do enough to protect and promote the culture and the arts? And in Canada we still have music in schools, and you go to Denmark or to Sweden and there's music in schools and they give out instruments. And are the states wrong in not fostering musical education and not supporting artists with radio play and things like that?
They're absolutely wrong. Now they would argue that somehow art, the flower manages to grow in the junkyard. You know what I mean? Like somehow it thrives and survives, but how much greater would it be if it was encouraged and nurtured and protected? To use the garden analogy, how many more flowers would we have, and how would it flourish if it had some protection and help and on every level? So yeah, it's a shame. I mean, I've done things. There was a big music gathering in the New York area. It's actually all the high schools got together, and it was to bring attention to the plight of the music programs in schools in the United States. And it's like the arts are the first thing that are cut when there are budget cuts. It's never sports. And I said, look, as a rock and jock who's as much a fan of sports as I am of all the arts, I recognize the need for both of them. So, well, what is the difference between the arts department, music departments, and the athletic departments? If they try to cut the athletic departments and the families raise holy hell, while the arts kind of go, oh, okay, oh, it sucks. They whine and complain, but they don't fight. And again, this goes back to the we are the ones. We're not going to take it. People are too silent, and they sit by too silently and are too willing to allow people on the either extreme, the left or the right, to drive the crazy bus. And we got to take back some control and fight for the things that matter to us. And the arts are something. And the arts are freaking important.
Yeah, and as a Canadian, I appreciate the irony in the thing, because America's greatest export has been Hollywood, has been the Sunset Strip and the music from that era, has been art. That's when you go to wherever it is, Syria or Iran or France or whatever, they talk about, the new Iron Man movie, and that's the first thing you're cutting, and it's peculiar.
It is. And they will use, and you're absolutely right, but they will use that as an argument in their defense. They say, see, they're doing just fine without us. Without the budget in the school, and without the film program and the art program and the music program, it hasn't stopped us from being the number one power, when it comes to that kind of stuff. And so that's their argument. But again, I just say, how much greater, how much more amazing would it be if it wasn't so difficult for students to get instruments, or students to get lessons, or students to develop their talents.
And of course, the arts develops all kinds of mental skills and math skills, but we can debate that all day. I would be remiss if we just didn't quickly touch upon the final show. Are you sort of emotionally prepared for that, for standing out there the last time, knowing that this is it?
You know what? I think I am, but as you know, I leave for Mexico tomorrow, and then we play on Saturday night, and then that's the last show. And I'm, my brain is like thinking, wow, it's really here. It's really, this is really it. Because unlike some of my peers like Scorpions or Judas Priest, who had no intention of retiring, or Ozzy, or Bowie, or Tina. The list is long and inglorious.
Yes. The Who, Kiss, all these.
Yeah. So I don't know. Do they tell themselves they really believe it when they're up there waving farewell that they're actually gone, or is it a ploy from day one, or they can I don't know what they think, but I know that this is very real. For me, and I don't know. When I'm in the moment, it's always been put your head down and rock as hard as you can, and get to the finish line, get to the end of the set. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean it like. I view my performances like an Olympic runner, and they're running and they're going for the gold. And they're running as hard as they can, and their lungs are burning, and they're running out of breath, and their legs are killing them, but they push themselves, and you see them, they get across the line, and they practically collapse. That's the effort that any real pro puts into what they do, and that's what I put in. I work so hard it hurts. So it's not pleasurable for me during the process, but it feels amazing when I crossed the line. I throw my hands in the air, and I crushed it. But Saturday will be the last time that I do that in that fashion, because I plan on continuing to play solo. But there's not a headbanging song on this new record. I've been in rehearsals. I've not written songs to headbang because my neck is shot. I have not written songs to thrash to. I've not written songs to throw my body on the ground and roll on the floor or crawl to. So my performing style, while still energetic and still intense, is not going to be physical on that level where I'm in pain during and after the shows. So Saturday will be the last. The point is, am I ready?
Yeah.
I think so. I've been looking to get to the finish line, but at the same time, it's going to be poignant.
Yeah, and it'll cap a great career. Just since you mentioned the pain and stuff, has it become more difficult to perform? Because we all get older, and we all, my shoulders hurt, my back hurts. Can you still have that same level of performance, or are you really starting to sort of feel your age at this point?
Well, anybody who, I'll say to the listeners, who read my book knows I talked about this, how in my 20s, I would crawl out of bed every day and just literally crawl to a tub and fall in a hot bathtub and soak my body every single day. So I keep reminding myself, this is nothing new. I always pushed myself to the breaking point. I always performed to the point where it hurt. And so the fact that it hurts, it hurts. I don't view it as much as age as I view it as much my style. This said, I've already had knee surgeries, throat surgeries, shoulder surgeries, some things from performing, some things from just working out and being, being a physical, an athletic kind of guy. I've got, limited range of motion on my neck now. I've limited range of motion on my shoulder. There's things that are just wearing out. And so the pain has always been a constant for me. But like I said, the stuff's wearing out, and I want to walk off. While I don't want to finish when I can no longer do it. If it wasn't for certain surgeries, I wouldn't be able to do it as long as I've been doing it. My knee surgery, for one. Paul Stanley would have had 2 hip replacements. So people keep going thanks to the advancements in medical science when we would have been stopped in our tracks years ago. But I just I don't know. Is there some things that are actual? Yes, certain things are attributable to age, for sure.
Yeah, and I see that it's 1:30, so you got to get going. Always a pleasure, and hopefully the interview ended better than it started for you. But there you go. It is what it is. We do our best. Do the best we can.
Look at this. These are the questions that you, and that means the metal audience, want to ask, and they want answers they want to know. And I just said, I'm not doing this to defend myself. I'm doing this because I'm doing a new album because I feel challenged, and I see a place for me, at least message-wise. And ultimately, the fans will decide. And and like you said, like I have 2 paths in my mind. One is to continue on down this path and to tour and to do more music and do new albums and to keep working this end of it. And to that result, and I'm giving you a couple extra minutes here, Mitch. They say, well, what are you looking for? A million-selling record? I said, no, I'm looking for signs of life. I'm looking for, just like when Twisted Sister started out, when we first showed up places, trust me, it wasn't a room full of people going, yay. It was most of the room going, what the F? You remember, we predate Motley Crue and predate Rat and predate Poison and all those bands. And they were going, what the hell is that? But there was always a certain portion of the room that was going, yeah, I love this. So I'm looking for some passion to find my audience. And so I'm just looking for that, signs of life. So if I see that, if I see that in sales, I see that in reaction, I see that in attendance at shows I do, then I'm going, you know what? I'm going to keep on keeping on. But if I just see there's rebuked, I'm rebuked. Yeah, you're Dee Snider, and you need to stay Dee Snider and Twisted Sister. I'll go, okay, fair enough.
Well, I'll tell you this, that wasn't, I'll just say this before we hang up. That wasn't the arc of the interview I was trying to create. I was trying to get to the end game of being an artist should be free to create the art that they want to make, and that's what an artist is supposed to be. And isn't it sort of a shame that artists themselves sometimes put themselves, like AC/DC will never do a jazz album because they have to be AC/DC, and at some point I find that regretful, because it would be nice to see what those guys could do outside of their box, and because it could be interesting. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it's a failure, you know?
Yeah, and I appreciate, and you know, I'm sorry to jump on you back there, but
No, that's okay.
I appreciate that you appreciate that. It is an ongoing frustration throughout the history of, but it seems to be more with metal, you know, more with heavy bands. Which is, you know, you was mentioning Madonna and Bowie, and you know, artists who have changed their style, and people, you know, go, oh, cool, you know, within other mainstream rock world, but in the metal world, you know, Metallica does Load, which was an incredible album, and some people are screaming, "Oh, are you kidding? That was it wasn't Metallica, but it was a great record. They were trying to expand. One of my favorite Motorhead records is Another Perfect Day. But it's not a Motorhead record in the traditional sense, and people hated it. You know, so many bands who have tried to, heavy bands who have tried to go and deviate from what was expected of them have gotten just a hostile response from their fans.
True, but I'll say this about the fans, though, in metal. They're loyal to a fault. When they pick, when Twisted Sister's their band or Motorhead is their band, they will stay with them forever. Whereas in the other ones, you know, you'll be a Prince fan.
As long as you don't try to do anything new.
Right, absolutely. but it's sort of give and take. Don't do anything new, and we'll stay with you. But you know, Prince will get some new fans. You know, there's ephemeral fans that.
But then here's the oddity on it.
Right.
Is that so? All these bands, like Kiss, like Crew, like all these, they make these new albums, these new old sounding records, you know, and they don't sell. Oh, they sell tens of thousands, and live, the band starts out the tour, and they're doing Psycho Circus tour, and they got 2 or 3 new songs in the set. And by the end of the tour, it's down to 1, and the next tour, you never hear a song from that set of the album again.
Yeah, it's true.
You know, it disappears. Alice Cooper every year does a new album. He plays 1 or 2 new songs, and the next year, that's gone.
True. True.
You know, Dirty Diamonds. You ever heard Dirty Diamonds in the set since Dirty Diamonds came out? No. That's because and this isn't a band. I'm not saying anything. It was a great record. The fans don't want it. It's the bathroom song. You know, I've talked about that at length. It's the bathroom song. Oh, they're playing a new one. Let's go get a beer.
But of all those artists that you mentioned, Alice Cooper is the one who has sort of changed or experimented the most. You listen to Dada, to Zipper Catch a Skin, to $1 Billion Babies. We're not doing the same thing. He's gotten away with it, I guess, is the words for it.
No, he's not. Well, so how much of that material any of it is in that wasn't successful is in his live set?
Well, I don't think nothing from
Poison
Dada.
and the one about the bed burning, whatever the other one, Fire, Poison, and the other song that he had from the '80s. Those 2 songs were in a set, and they were million-selling records. You know, other than that, it's the old
House
stuff.
of Fire.
Anyway,
I think right. Anyway.
House of Fire.
Anyway,
I was getting confused with Midnight Oil.
Yeah, me too.
Right. I got to jump, man. It was great talking to you, Mitch. I'll talk to you again sometime.
Cheers. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And there you have it, folks, my interview with Dee Snider. The new album is We Are the Ones. You can never go wrong when talking or listening to Dee Snider. There you go, folks. That was another great episode, another great chat for me. Please check me out on Twitter at Mitch Lafon, one-on-one Mitch Lafon on Facebook, paypal.me/ should you care to support the podcast. And please don't forget to head over to talkingmetal.com, find the podcast there. You can now leave comments, so please do that. And there you go. That's it, folks. We're done. Bye for now. Oh, my.